See if you can tell what's wrong, or at least what's unusual, about this impact statement given at a recent US trial.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. It means a lot. I can't tell you how humbled I am for those that spoke up for me, everyone who flew in, took off work, those who are watching this remotely, and for everyone who has supported my family and loved ones through 3.5 years and 2 trials. I wish I could be with you all today.
So that was the voice of Christopher Pelkey speaking at a court case by video. But the reason he couldn't be there in person isn't because he was out of town or otherwise engaged, but rather because he's dead. Yes, for the first time ever, an AI avatar of a deceased victim of crime has been used in a courtroom to give an imagined impact statement into the consequences of their own death. And also to express his gratitude to the presiding judge.
To Your Honor, Judge Lang, thank you for making yourself available to see this case to the end, especially when the rescheduled trial conflicted with your daughter's spring break.
Bizarrely, Pelkey also had a message for the man responsible for his death.
To Gabriel Horcasitas, the man who shot me. It is a shame we encountered each other that day in those circumstances. In another life, we probably could have been friends. I believe in forgiveness and in God who forgives. I always have, and I still do.
So it's probably time to give you some context as opposed to what's going on here. So Pelkey, the avatar of whom you saw there, he was killed in a road rage shooting by Gabriel Horcasitas. When this AI-generated video was shown, Horcasitas had already been found guilty of manslaughter. So this wasn't sort of the trial of finding out whether he was innocent or guilty. This was for the purpose of helping the judge come to a decision about what sentence to apply to the person who carried out the manslaughter, who was responsible for Pelkey's death. The words read by the avatar of Pelkey were written by his sister, who, via the voice of her dead brother, had a message for the rest of the family.
To my family and everyone that I've met along the way. It was a lot of fun. You know, I always had a lot of fun. Love each other because you never know how long you have. But make the most of each day and live your life. It is okay to stumble. God has you. Remember, getting old is a gift that not everybody has. So embrace it and stop worrying about those wrinkles.
Now, this might all seem a little macabre and of questionable use or appropriateness in a court of law, but apparently the presiding judge loved it.
I love that AI. Thank you for that. And as angry as you are, and justifiably angry as the family is, I heard the forgiveness, and I know Mr. Horcasitas appreciated it, but so did I. As I said, I like to think I would do that. I don't know that I would. But I love the beauty in what Christopher, and I call him Christopher, I always call people by their last names. It's a formality of the court, but I feel like calling him Christopher as we've gotten to know him today. I feel that was genuine, that his obvious forgiveness of Mr. Horcasitas reflects the character I heard about today. But it also says something about the family. Because you told me how angry you were, and you demanded the maximum sentence. And even though that's what you wanted, you allowed Chris to speak from his heart as you saw it. I didn't hear him asking for the maximum sentence.
That was so weird. Right? He kept talking about the avatar like it was really him. The guy's dead. Pelkey's sister told 404 Media this about her thinking behind the AI video. Our goal was to make the judge cry. Our goal was to bring Chris to life and to humanize him. Now, that clearly worked because Horcasitas was handed down the maximum possible sentence for manslaughter. Aaron, I suppose what surprises me here isn't that someone wanted to... I mean, it's a bit weird to want to make an avatar of your dead siblings sort of likeness and then put your words into their mouth. Bit distasteful, but I can see how that would happen. The fact that the judge said this is a great idea seems like a really odd judgment to me.
I don't know, Michael. I don't know. I mean, I instinctively laughed at the thing you laughed at. And clearly a judge should be as analytical as possible in trying to hand down a sentence. And the intention here, as the sister of the person who died, the intention here was to emotionally move them in order to inflict maximum punishment on the perpetrator. And so justice should be blind. A judge shouldn't be thinking emotionally, right? On the one hand. On the other hand, Michael, sometimes you see awful things happen. Somebody's died. I think about this a lot with dangerous driving. You know, if you talk to anybody in the know, they say the easiest way to kill somebody and not really get a heavy sentence is to drive a car into them. You see people killing somebody in a car, dangerous driving, 2 years. They can't drive for 5 years. And I find that outrageous, frankly. You can take a life and you'll only be inside for 1 year and you can drive another car in a couple of years' time. I find that outrageous, personally. I know some people watching or listening might be more liberal than me on that stuff, but I think if I lost a loved one like that, I would be so angry. I would be so angry. And I suspect, Michael, in some of those cases, if the judge who was giving out the sentence had to listen to the voice of a 19-year-old who was just starting university, and they cycled because they cared about the planet, and they were, hit, and the driver subsequently drove off and didn't think twice about calling emergency services. I suspect if they used their image, and allowed them to speak in their own words, based upon a narrative that was created by a sibling, for instance, or a parent, I suspect that some of those sentences would be significantly longer. So I can see the argument in either direction. I do think it's a bit strange for the judge to overtly say how moved he is by it. Like I say, justice is meant to be blind. But, I'm not against it, Michael. I see so many sentences where people are effectively let off for the most outrageous things, where they have incredibly short sentences. I know we have some disagreement in Novara about prisons. So, yeah, why not try it? Be interesting, wouldn't it?
I mean, it would be interesting. I mean, clearly it would be interesting. We've just done a segment about the first time it happened. It is interesting. I suppose my danger is, and I think you used the turn of phrase there, hearing from someone in their own words, but they're not. They're dead. So it can't be their own words. So there does seem like something a bit dishonest about it. Because I mean, I feel
they don't get justice.
Well, no. Well, I think you can get justice.
They can't talk in their own words, can they?
Well, no, but I think you can get justice without putting words into the mouth of a dead victim, right? You get justice by speaking to the family or people who can actually speak in their own words. I suppose what I mean is, if I think in a court of law, I'd probably prefer to be very clear whose words are from whom, not allowing, well, in this case, a sibling to put words into the mouth of someone who didn't say those things. That to me seems troublesome, and I imagine, especially when sort of as deep fakes or AI becomes more and more realistic, the idea that you can put words into someone else's mouth and then sort of use that for dramatic emotional purpose, to me seems like something that we should make taboo, probably.
Well, courts are dramatic places, Michael. The whole point of a barrister is to inject a story and a narrative and drama into, for instance, in a Crown Court. The whole point, actually, of the art of being a barrister is to create drama. So I don't think that's necessarily true, particularly in the adversarial system that we have in the Anglophone countries. Certainly in an English court, there's a ton of drama, Michael. So I don't really buy that, actually. And like I say, I know some stories. I know one story of a young woman that was training to work in the NHS. She was hit by a car. Dude drove off. I think he went to prison for 1 year. I think sometimes a lot of sentences are handed down, and actually, I honestly don't think the judge is treating the case on its own merits. I don't, and I think there's an element of people being dehumanized because they literally aren't there to represent themselves. If somebody has been, assaulted and they've got GBH and they're in hospital for 3 months, and they turn up to a court and they say what happened, ultimately, Michael, they can move the judge or the jury, of course, this is in sentencing. They can move the judge in a way that somebody who's dead can't, actually. So, I can see arguments both ways. I think fundamentally this is obviously quite an American thing. I can't imagine it catching on in the UK. And I suspect, just going back to your point, I think the more realistic these things become and the more quotidian they become, the more we see generative AI as a feature of everyday life, I suspect people will actually switch off, right? No, it's not real. Okay. This is meant to move me, but it doesn't, I'm sure for the first couple of years it would. People adapt, right? So I'm not suggesting let's have it in courts immediately, Michael, generative AI, but I can see the case for it. I can genuinely see the case for it. But as I said, it would be interesting if you had, a set of data in the kinds of cases it was used for, the differences in sentencing, etc. That would be quite interesting. Am I proposing we adopt it in English and Welsh courts? No.